You know, we have people that go back a decade in the city here. We have like sort of the crew that's been hit the hardest, served the most patients, and kind of tried to help construct something a little bit better than what got on as far as the law. But I think the important thing that we're focused on today is helping Mr. Starr with these questions and coming through with some really good suggestions. And what I'm hearing from Kathy is really true, that we do need some type of help from planning when not allowing sort of the encroachment in the 1,000-foot space for sensitive uses once we've been established and approved by our host neighborhood. Because a lot of times even the daycare, or, you know, like I know with ACT UP, who is one of our oldest collectives as well, the school that they were near they had no problems in the 10 years that they had been there with them. So it's not even the school going to Melinda Hague. It's usually, unfortunately, and this is something that's sort of a yucky thing to bring up, but, you know, we have competitors turning competitors over, and they'll go and find a school near you, you know, and kind of go up the notches and try to push off the map. And I think as far as just, you know, trying to find a way to protect some of our anonymity. Thank you. And the sort of, you know, when we're established, can we then let the Planning Commission know not to approve, you know, a daycare or something like that within our radius, knowing that it'll endanger us?
I understand the issue, and I'll
It's this came out. And this was sort of a side companion piece to the destructive thing that Avalos was doing with pushing a dispensary off the map. So when it came before planning, a bunch of activists organized and went up to the Planning Commission and said, let's get a review of the green zone, let's get something involved. And the Planning Commission agreed with the activists and then asked Supervisor Avalos, well, why not have a broader discussion? Because the activists are asking for better tools, and we're the Planning Commission, and we're asking for better tools. So that's how this came about, and maybe it's my fault for not explaining as well when we opened the meeting.
But this is language that's being added.
This is just
Or an ordinance,
This is
to
a
be
request for a
ordinance.
study, and this
Yeah.
gentleman is doing the study.
That, you know, it's a weird way to request a study. What he did was he amended the administrative code to direct the Planning Commission to do this report.
Okay,
It's a
so,
weird way of doing it, but yeah, that language
so
is being
my
added.
suggestion is that you literally go and talk to all the dispensaries, because a lot of these things, the dispensaries already know how to manage it. They already know the impacts. They already know what to be aware of for safety and, you know, taking care of the people. So I just would direct you to talking.
That's what he's sort of
Okay, good.
directed to do. So I guess I needed to preface a little bit more once we started the meeting, sort of how this is happening. I know that Granddaddy Mike also had some commentary. And Jen, did you have
No,
commentary?
I just want to follow up on the issue of protection once there is an established dispensary, of not allowing schools to come in within 1,000 feet, because I can envision, you know, if somebody wanted to really shut them down, you could just have, open up a daycare and all of these, you know, effectively shut them all down. So I would hope that maybe you could have some sort of a, you know, protection written in there as to what kind of uses can be, you know,
I can bring it up as an issue
done within
and
1,000
something
feet.
to be addressed. I'm not sure what we can legally do. It'd be very
Right.
difficult to
Right,
sort
to-
of flag all the uses and then have
Yeah.
to make them go through a review. But I get the issue.
Yeah, that's
And
tough.
it's interesting because it's
Yeah.
not really something that planning is doing, it's something that the federal government is doing. We only restrict recreation centers, MCDs from recreation centers in schools, or if there's a drug rehab facility in the building. We don't talk about parks, we don't talk about daycares, nothing like that. So that's the federal government's interpretation of what it's going to be.
And I guess the comment I would like to make is, and for those of you that don't know me, I lived in this city for 25 years, so I'm familiar with the city and city politics. I want to see San Francisco stand up with a more liberal view and a more supportive position on medical cannabis, which befits our history in this movement, right? And I realize that all the people at this table are smart enough to realize that they don't want to flagrantly violate a federal guideline, even if the city's requirements are less restrictive. But as a political statement and a support statement for our industry, there's no reason why the city has to adopt the federal limits,
Correct, absolutely.
right?
My feeling is that
And
no
we could
matter.
adopt a 500-foot rule.
No, we couldn't, because the state is 600, and we can't violate.
Okay, so we could adopt a 600-foot rule.
We could.
And that would say the city of San Francisco believes that the federal guideline is overly restrictive.
Yeah, but Hague would be in it the next day, shouldn't it?
I'm not saying you should open a dispensary between 600 and 1,000 feet of any of these existing, I'm just saying, from a statement point of view, you could
From
make a
political
communication.
statement point of view, but then we
Right.
have merchants that aren't necessarily cognitive of all the political realities who
Well,
would open
Then
the
And then
store.
once
they don't
the
have,
federal law will
then they don't
change,
have
we
the
hope,
best operational
soon.
practices
You
that
know.
they need to survive in this
Right.
industry. That's my
Right.
point.
And it would be better to have a 600-foot when the federal law does
Due
change.
diligence
It's gonna
is
happen, it's just a matter of when. You know?
You can't be a stoner in this city.
I have a question that maybe is going off a little bit onto the Shona agenda, but as far as the operational requirements, I feel that some of, and is it okay to kind of shift to that question for a moment? I guess one of the things that the Patient Advocacy Committee and the Veterans Committee and some of the more patient advocate, not actually distributor concerns are, and many of the compassionate distributors' concerns were around compassion programs and, sort of can the application process be more supportive of dispensaries that are compassionate towards low-income patients. I know there's a push within the industry to have everything glossy and pretty and marketing and all of that sort of thing. But I think that when I sat at a table with the patient advocates, and conversely, when I sat at a table with compassionate distributors, they wanted a way to work with the city via maybe Healthy San Francisco or something along these lines, where we can set up something that is an operational standard for all distributors in San Francisco, because like Mike was saying, we are sort of the heart of the compassion movement. Things got going because people were dying. And I'm just wondering, are other groups bringing that to those concerns to your ears?
AxisOfLove is the only one who's not that.
Okay, so I'm the only one that said anything about that so far. Okay.
You were the one that you were talking about, your organization can't open up or you don't consider yourself a retail operation, but you have more than 9 people, so therefore you automatically categorize as an MCD.
Correct.
Is that the same?
It's a similar concern. I mean, I think that the state definition of MCD is actually a retail outlet, so I think it's easy for the city to look at the state definition, and, the concern wasn't only towards me, but there were low-income cultivation sites that were getting their, door kicked in. I believe one of our dear friends, Brent Salpe, had this issue where he had the low-income cultivation seat on our task force and got a visit because he was distributing and cultivating for more than 9 patients. Now, of course, somebody can just say, put 9 scripts up and solve that situation for cultivation and actually be serving, giving out free grams to other people who need them. But why should someone whose goodwill and good intent is going along that way be the person that has to hide and go around corners to be able to care for people? That's why
Took him 2.5 years to get out.
and that's just, that's 2.5 years, and I've obviously been targeted several times over. I mean, one of my last things was somebody reported me, I believe, for smoking a joint in the back office of the community center, and it's just, it gets to the point where it gets frivolous, it gets tiring. How can we find some relief for the people who do provide compassion at the retail outlets and also through patient organizations that don't have retail outlets. Because I think both of these people, both communities need support from the city, and I think that the city has a policy direction towards being compassionate. I mean, is there anything we can build into even like, I guess like maybe even when people go up before planning, if they, you know, one of the things we talked about, if they don't have a compassion maybe program or don't give any discount to veterans, maybe they should explain to the commission why.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain findings you can put into something when a commission reviews it, but that doesn't speak to the other issue of people that aren't retail operations, the other issue you're talking about. And I think EPH would have to sort of weigh in on that, on how they, if and how they would look at them differently.
And I know DPH is willing to look at it differently, just in my conversations with them, even Dr. Badia even thought it would be a good idea to look at Healthy San Francisco helping the retail locations, but it got kind of clamped down from the top that said, oh, Healthy San Francisco doesn't have enough money to help us consider how to do this. And then I think the core of the issue is really the definition of MCD needs to be changed. Because if it's changed to the state definition of a retail outlet, then you don't have people like myself and Brent being targeted. You know, and an MCD in common practice and in common use is a retail outlet. You know?
AxisOfLove is a outpatient
Oh, the
hospice.
Chelsea
We're like an outpatient hospice service, you know.
And I think that's an area that needed help too, and we even had a seat on the task force for hospice care, which not a lot got done with, but, you know, we need to have the ability to get to Laguna Honda. I mean, it's nice that My Tree is set up, there's only a few beds there, you know, but the greater majority of people that are dying, for all intents and purposes, in poverty and definitely deserve the same pain relief. We need to be able to get into Laguna Honda as well, so.
Leonard's still going up there.
Is he still going
He's
up
still
there?
going up there.
Good for him.
I just caroled out there on Tuesday, singing
Nice.
Christmas carols.
I mean, that's just my, that's the show on the agenda as far as, we need to have a better, I think that's all solved with the definition of MCD. I mean, if it's defined as what it is, then these other services can find their own definition and find a way for the city to have some oversight processes, right?
I would like to suggest too that it would be very forward-looking to think about the other kinds of marijuana-related businesses that are coming on the horizon here. I mean, there will be, adult use entertainment club type situations.
When it becomes recreational.
Yes, and
Maybe not if.
well, it's already happening in the underground. I mean, I'm sure if you look very hard, scratch the surface, you can find it's already happening.
Right, Measure Z?
Well,
We don't have any
I don't wanna-
judges smiling or laughing at our establishment.
And I also want to point out, there's commercial indoor growing happening in warehouses in San Francisco now. I'm sure you're aware of that, right? And how are you going to zone for those?
Yeah, that's something our.
And we're talking about dispensaries here, but we're not looking at the production side of the neighborhood who wants to have 6 legal adult plants in his backyard and has issues with his neighbors who are, whatever group has got enough canophobia so they can't accept that, right? And so you're going to have to be in a situation where you're going to have to protect the rights of our cannabis patients to grow marijuana in their own homes. And you're going to have to protect the rights of people that are going to have to do large indoor commercial grows in order to provide the cannabis that San Francisco is consuming at the best, lowest price. Because we're all here about more better product to more people at a fair price. And you need to help us do that.
That's right.
That's awesome, yeah.
Please.
Right?
That's
Serve the
great.
Right?
people.
Set it
I
off
serve
right
the
there.
people as
There you
well.
go.
Amen.
And I
Right.
definitely
Conservation
expect
Committee
that
for
we're
the
gonna
task force.
get some good service from our
Which was
government.
some very nice guidelines.
Which I did
And
give
then
to
there's
Mr.
a-
Starr. I
and
gave
there's-
him, I should probably let folks know, I gave Mr. Starr the cultivation report from the task force. I gave him the patient advocacy report from the task force. I think we've seen the board change to be a little bit more conservative than we're used to, especially from people that have lived here over 20 years, like us old folks over here.
I've lived here since '96.
I've been
So,
in my place for 26
You
years.
join us old
You know
folks
what I
over
mean?
here.
I mean, for the longest time, when we wanted them to do something, we wanted regulation and they just didn't wanna do anything.
But
But then
I'll
all of a
tell
sudden
you-
it was like, you know, this whirlwind, you know, and all of a
Well,
sudden
there
we're
were
just
big-
like regulated, you know?
There were 3 or 4 places who were making major problems in the city and they had to regulate.
Is that, well, I'm just saying though, still, they did consult with, you know, they picked 1 or 2 people to consult
Mhm.
with and left all the rest of us out. And they
That's
didn't pick the
typical.
good players.
No,
I
well,
mean,
they
to talk
picked the,
to.
they picked
All right,
the
let's face it,
players
we know
that
who
are
they
most
picked, okay?
politically savvy, and that is one of the reasons why
I don't
I've
want-
worked 10 years to make sure that there's task forces and there's working groups, so that another voice is apparent to the city, you know, and that's why I continue to do it, even though it's really difficult. You know, it's really difficult to get everybody to the table, and it's really difficult
But
to.
yeah, but when you've been at the table for years, you come up with stuff. They
Yeah.
refuse to do anything. They refuse to do any of it. They go behind your back with these questionable characters and who have gotten into trouble and cook up everything and leave us all out. And that's all I gotta say about it.
But we intercepted, we made sure that, you know, one of the talks that was happening prior to this legislation happening was, you know, me sitting down with different supervisors saying, let's make sure that you get the whole community to the table. Are you talking to people that have been federally shuttered? Are you talking to people who are at risk of closing? Or are you talking to the same people? And, you know, we got it slowed down, we're getting input now, and we just have to run with the ball and get something into Mr. Starr by mid-January that, you know, I think will be at least balanced with the input of maybe some of the more lobbyist savvy groups that, you know, are out there as well. I mean, there's a lot of power here too. I don't think we need to underestimate our abilities here to work together.
And I just want to make one, you know, final observation on the, I mean, I understand why you guys are upset about the language here, because I think that it's just not forward thinking. It's coupling us with alcohol. It's not, you know, it isn't really, it's not making us the leader that we were before and the revolutionary city that we were on this issue. And it seems to be, and, you know, I mean, I think that's the real problem here, is that we're taking a giant step backward, and it's gonna have lasting ramifications, and, you know, it's just a matter of time until the federal law is gonna change. They can't keep it this way forever, so.
Well, we've lost the support of the mayor, the supervisors, and that's, he's at the top telling
Right.
the people down below what to do. But back to the report, right, we can go back and just collect our reports from the Cultus Creators Committee we all sat on, and working all the way back with Ross, right, about, but about the collective grows. I mean, he had city property that he was, and that just got squashed, you know, for us to do collective grows.
And that was because there's also like the federal crunch down happening, but I know that Attorney Nicoletto is going to be sitting down with a face-to-face with Sheriff Mercarini about our suggestion of sheriff's zip ties and et cetera. I know that Supervisor D is wanting to look at some residential grow stuff, because when I went in for appointment on another topic, he did ask for the cultivation report from the task force as well.
And on
So
the zip tie issue, I just want to, Ross was asking what that would entail and what you want him to do.
Okay.
So,
I will get him in contact with.
so let me know and I'll pass it on.
I was part of the 9.31 in Mendo way back.
All right, so you,
It's almost
you'd
its
be
roots.
a good person. that's
And, but that,
Mhm.
their guidelines for that is perfect, boom.
Yeah,
Yes, they are, they're
It is.
perfect.
okay, so
You
maybe
know,
we can get a
it-
copy of
but-
those and I can give them, I'm meeting him, I think, in the next couple of days for
But
coffee.
that got mentioned years ago too, before the 931, the year before when there was like 10 of us. But the thing with the 9.31, since Sheriff Allman and Supervisor McGowan up there got served, from the feds to turn over all the records, right?
They just recently gave them over too.
Well, not all of them. It was pretty watered. I was actually up there,
Okay,
and
so
it was kind of watered down.
Okay.
But before it was everything.
I know they asked for anything.
That's a scary thing. I don't know if we really would want that.
Well, no,
Well,
this
I
was the
mean,
feds coming in.
right,
It's IRS driven though, because they're gonna say, okay, you have 99
Yeah.
tags, right? An average 2 pounds of plant, and 2,000 a pound equals, here's your tax bill.
Right.
That's-
Al Capone style.
But that's exactly what I was gonna use. How did they get Al Capone? Taxes.
That's right.
Right?
I don't know if you've noticed, but they've changed their shift. You're right.
Yeah, how
The
they're
federal
coming in.
government has
I
has
don't
changed.
got
I said
nothing,
that back
man.
in '96, what about the taxes? And I
Why
was
can't-
the only accountant there and the only one that gave a shit,
Right, but
right,
then
about
why
the
isn't the
taxes.
government asking me to 1099 the vendors coming? There's the loophole right there.
Oh, then, yeah.
Right, but then we
Right,
give,
yeah.
like you give compassion away, and the BOE wants taxes on
Yeah.
it for giving free medicine.
But major
there's,
problem.
It's huge.
yeah, but there's a few things you can do with
We're at
that,
400,000 if we want to play that game.
or you know what I mean, and
Yeah, I know.
there's a few things you can do. You can give discounts all day long, to any group you want. I give discounts to the veterans and to the senior citizens. That you can do without any tax problems. And you can give away anything that you deem has no dollar value.
So,
So if you deem that this weed over here has no dollar value, you don't purchase it and you deem it has no dollar value, you can give it away all day long.
Correct, but we make money, we're a nonprofit, we have to take our profits and purchase the medicine. So that has to be shown in our P&L, right, as a call. We purchased it, then we bagged it
I
up.
purchased it, all of it.
Correct,
all day
and then,
long.
but then we, 300, grams a year and this and that. So we show that for the IRS side of it, right? But then the BOE came in and said, oh, you can't give that away.
That's right, well, I can't give
Because
away
you
anything I had
purchased
to
it.
buy.
Well, you
Anything
can
have
give
to
it away,
buy,
but you still have to pay taxes.
Has to
Right,
be
yeah,
a
exactly.
or it's a yeah,
so,
you have to pay the tax.
I think we want to really thank you, Mr. Starr, for coming to the working group. We will get you sort of our inner skinny as a working group by the mid-January.
Great.
So drop dead date January 15th. Of course.
I was wondering what the planning department could do to help people like me. I'm gonna get real selfish for a minute here.
Please do.
HomeNet was open down on 9th Street for 10 years or so, and we really cleaned up the neighborhood enough for a school to move in. We cleaned up the neighborhood a lot, and I haven't been able to find a place to open, or it's really, it's really difficult to find a place unless you don't have really good dollars.
And even with that, you can't find it.
And even with that, you can't find a place. So, things
How are we going to prioritize the people that have been federally shuttered? I mean, I know I have it in the patient advocacy report. We have a statement, a finding that basically tells the city, opening new businesses is not the same as the community-based organizations of, HopeNet, Vapor Room, Divinity Tree, etc. Is there a way for the city planners to help prioritize that group of
The way things get prioritized is if the city deems it a priority.
so that should be one of our asks when, as a working group, we compose our letter to you. We should clarify that as an ask.
We have prioritized certain applications for low housing, for other things, but that's.
We would have to ask to
We
legally
work-
put in that category of prioritization.
But the problem with they're gonna run into, and I've been at the planning department, it's like I should have my own little chair.
Yeah, you should, totally.
But I bring my own anyway. But seriously, what the problem is the communities like Divinity Tree, HopeNet, their little communities are now without medicine. without the help, without the support of those dispensaries helping the people. Like at our dispensary, you know, it's like a 5-block radius of people we help. They can't get back in there because of the 1,000-foot rule, anywhere in those neighborhoods, because you take yours and draw a line, well, that school is.
Well, there are places in the Soma that I could move into, but I would need a special exemption or something like that.
Well, how do you get that from the planning department then? Is
I
it
don't know, it's
like
just- we don't
is it
have a
use-
special
is it a
exemption,
use-
so I don't know what.
A use permit
I'm talking about building.
in a building, existing building?
No, I'm saying
She
that
gave an
there-
exemption from the building.
Building permit.
It's pretty, it's either permitted or it's not in planning, so.
I got you.
Yeah, it's
And then-
really straightforward with planning.
And that's what scares me with some of the more well-heeled lobbyist requests to like shut down neighborhoods in saturation. And when they brought it up at legal committee many moons ago and screamed at me, we're gonna take our city allies and we're gonna do something about saturation. We're gonna shut down south of Market. We're gonna shut down the hate. And, you know, we're gonna be the turf holders. And I was like, okay, well, my agenda's a little bit different, you know? And I think, you know, before the city looks at saturation, they should prioritize the community organizations that were actually helping patients. I think patients deserve a prioritization over the competitive business interest, and I don't know how to phrase that any way other than just saying it.
You know, when I went down we went down to Southern California to try to get a permit before we opened the hemp center. And, we went to Beverly Hills, needless to say, to Winchell Boulevard, and we found a place, we went down to the planning department. And, what they wanted to know is what we were gonna do for the community.
Community
All right.
benefit.
And so we talked to planning, and they said, well, let's get to us. And they said, had us to talk to the sheriff or the local police. And, you know, we went back and forth, and they had them submit a formal plan of what the services we were gonna provide for the community. It was okay with him, but the district attorney at that time was not ready for us, okay?
Right.
Which is to say, though, is that they had us to present to them exactly what we were gonna do for the community in writing.
Yeah, no, and that's one thing that we talked about the community benefits are, as a sort of finding when you go.
That's awesome. We'll get our
Yeah.
report to you by the 15th.
15th is good, it's right in the middle, it's a Wednesday,
Okay.
middle of the month.
And I have to say, I had a pleasure with my personal interview. I think especially the dispensary owners, you got Mr. Starr's card?
Yep, yeah, I gave it all
So
to
you
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
request your own
There's
interview.
a meeting for-